The Marvel Cinematic Universe was about to start with a big bang.
We were tasked with doing 2 movies right off the bat. You're gonna make 2 movies for this summer, for summer 2008. What are they gonna be? We chose Hulk and Iron Man because we believed in the content and the concept and the comic.
Co-created by Stan Lee and others in 1963, Iron Man first suited up for Marvel in the anthology comic Tales of Suspense. The story centers around billionaire playboy Tony Stark, who suffers a near-fatal injury during a kidnapping. To survive, Stark builds a suit of armor and uses it to protect the world as Iron Man.
What makes Tony Stark unique is really where he comes from and the fact that he is a self-made man. He doesn't have superpowers. His one great power is his mind, and his mind is what creates the Iron Man suit. And that Iron Man suit is what brings him from normal, everyday Tony Stark, and we say normal everyday, but the guy is like a multi-billionaire industrialist, to this incredible superhero.
That's the singular thing about Tony, is left to his own devices, desperate or not, better when he's desperate, he will manage to create something that no amount of resources would match.
And it's also his path from becoming that great inventor who's building weapons, which is necessarily the most heroic of professions, to building the Iron Man suit. It's that path in building the Iron Man suit that is his arc of redemption, where he discovers that what he was building in the past wasn't really serving society, but building Iron Man can serve society. So he takes this sort of hero's quest, and in becoming Iron Man, really becomes a better person at the end of the day.
Part of the appeal of Tony Stark is the damage, and he's a complicated figure, and I think he kind of represents the dark side in all of us, and that hope that we all overcome our own demons, and he's sort of a personification of that.
While comic book fans were well aware of the adventures of Iron Man, many in the general public had yet to discover the character. To some, Iron Man was simply a B character, not nearly on the level of some of the company's more popular creations like Spider-Man and the Hulk. The company would be taking a huge risk launching their new studio with this little-known character.
The secret to the Marvel comics, of course, is character. I don't believe in the tiers. I don't believe in A tier, B tier, C tier. It's up to us to make them all A. Because in the comics, they are. When you have a character that's been around 45 years, 50 years, that's an A character, that's an A franchise. And then it's our burden to convince the rest of the movie-going public that that's the case.
Iron Man was a property that had been kicking around town. It had been at New Line. They hadn't really had a way into making it. And I think everyone at Marvel kind of knew that there was something cool about this character, Iron Man. Back then, I literally spent, 6 months reading every Iron Man comic book, reading through all of them, pouring through all of them, just trying to put together packets of material. And we went out to, I think, about 30 writers, and they all passed. No one was interested in writing this movie. Marvel Studios is doing their own thing. They've never made a movie before. No takers. So we just kept sending out this packet in a letter. Iron Man's a character, 60 years of history, one of the mainstays of Marvel, pass, 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 pass. And we were like, what are we gonna do? And so we were really excited once people actually started coming in for pitches. And then of course, as we shaped the film, even when we were trying to get rewrites during production on the first movie, we would go out to writers and they would pass. Nope, not interested in rewriting this thing. And we were like, we'll pay you, just come rewrite it. And everyone kept saying no. And since then, I've met with some of the writers that passed on it, and they all feel like, oh my God, I can't believe I passed on Iron Man. Who knew it was gonna be such a cool thing? But whatever it was, that energy of how the first film came together and how we were doing it from the ground floor up, all in-house at Marvel, it's really special. But I think as we started digging through that material, it became apparent that there was a hero there that was kind of unlike all the others.
With Marvel executives on board to make Iron Man their first feature, they now had the daunting task of finding the right components to make the superhero fly at the box office. Perhaps the biggest question was, who was going to direct the film? For that, Marvel decided to gamble and go with an unlikely choice.
All the action's going all along this line. There are 2 burning hulks of cars here, a lot of smoke, a lot of stuff crossing, very disorienting. We're on the road, the road's here, you're in the sand when you get out. Wherever you end up, that's where the thing's gonna go off and explode.
By the first half of the decade, Jon Favreau was best known as an actor in independent films like Swingers. While he had directed some successful films, making a big-budgeted action film was not part of his resume. What he did have, though, was something Marvel believed was key in bringing Iron Man to the screen.
When it came to looking for a director on Iron Man, John was one that rose to the top very quickly. Favreau is an amazing filmmaker and his amazing intellect. So the meetings were great. He had ideas that were awesome right off the bat. My memory of this is that it was one of those early meetings where he said you should start with the accident. You should start with the convoy attack. and then flash back and lead back up to it. That just is the one that pops to my head as one of the very first things I ever heard him say about the movie. That is right there.
John is just, he's such a great actor, and he's such a great actor's director, and he's brought a real sense of story and truth and humanity.
The real trick is, how do you make something that's ridiculous in the comic book actually plausible in our film? And how far can we stretch it before we break the tone?
3, 2, 1, go!
What aspect of the Marvel books we play up, the sense of humor, the type of casting choices we make. My job as a director has been to know what's appropriate for the movie.
Finding the right actor to play the complex superhero character was crucial. It was a role that could not only make or break the film, but also an entire franchise and a film studio.
Mr. Stark, you have been described by some as a Da Vinci for our time. What do you have to say about that?
Da Vinci, ridiculous. I don't paint.
Oh, and what do you have to say about the fact that Stark Weapons is responsible for millions of deaths since World War II?
Oh boy, let me guess. Berkeley? Ms.
Miss Summer, and it's Brown.
Okay. Well, listen, Ms. Brown, it's an imperfect world, but it's the only one we've got. I assure you the day weapons are no longer needed to keep the peace, I'll happily transist to manufacturing bricks and beams for baby hospitals, making hemp pants and the like, but until that time, can I get you a drink?
Ever since Robert was announced as being Iron Man, people really dug the idea.
Nice to see you, Toby. Thanks for dressing up. He's a hell of a guy.
We knew Robert Downey Jr. is gold. People have loved him for so long, and they all want him to do well.
I had always wanted to work with Robert. It had been kind of one of my lifelong ambitions. Robert is just utterly brilliant and completely gifted and totally wacky and his own amazing creation.
The reason that I'm playing Tony Stark, the reason that I'm involved in Iron Man, the reason that I'm so excited is I'm crazy about movies. That's why I wanted to become an actor. Superheroes who manufacture weapons and then build one that they wear and use, to me, is just a complete nerdgasm.
Do a weather and ATC check, start listening in on ground control.
Sir, there are still terabytes of calculations needed before an actual flight is a
Jarvis, sometimes you gotta run before you can walk. Ready? In 3, 2, 1. Yeah, I was bitching about it. I was saying, dude, where's my franchise? I had a feeling that given the opportunity, I could at least do as well as all the other schmucks. And here we are.
It was one of those situations where the material and the actor married well. And probably my single largest contribution to Iron Man was making that connection and making that happen.
I don't think we realized how much heart and how much humor there was going to be in this franchise until we cast Robert. I remember the original draft of the script wasn't funny. One of the real transformative moments on the first movie was the speech that Tony gives at the weapons demonstration.
They say the best weapon is one you never have to fire. I respectfully disagree. I prefer the weapon you only have to fire once. That's how Dad did it. That's how America does it. And it's worked out pretty well so far. For your consideration, the Jericho.
Robert brought such an insight into that scene of, I'm arrogant, I'm charismatic, I'm kind of a jerk, I'm impossible, but you like me.
I'll be throwing one of these in with every purchase of 500 million or more. It's a piece.
And whatever that was that he brought together in that scene, that's when we all started to realize that this franchise could be funny and could really have heart, because he was so sympathetic.
Where to, sir?
Take us to the hospital,
No.
please, Abby. No, Tony,
No
you
is a
have to go to
complete
the
answer.
hospital.
I don't
the
have
doctor
to do
has
anything.
to look
I've been
at
in
you.
captivity for 3 months. There are 2 things I want to do. I want an American cheeseburger. And the other
That's enough for that.
is not what you think. I want you to call for a press conference now.
Call for a press
Yeah,
conference.
Hogan,
What on
drive.
earth for?
Cheeseburger first.
Playing someone who's conflicted for the right reasons, and conflicted and doesn't see the potential that they have, and then starts living in accordance with a code is a great old-fashioned theme. But I hadn't ever imagined that I could be involved in something that demonstrates it on the scale.
With Robert Downey set in the lead role, other actors enthusiastically joined the cast.
The other cast fell into place very easily because there's a lot of fans. There's a lot of fans. And people really seem to like the idea of working with him and I together.
We're a hell of a team. Maybe you can't tell just from this snippet, but boy, does it work.
You just look at the footage, speaks.
And people who wouldn't normally do that kind of movie were reaching out. It's like whoever we wanted, we were getting.
Hey, Potts.
Making the first Iron Man was one of the most special experiences I've ever had, and I think John and Robert and I had like a chemistry and a friendship together and a creative freedom.
People say, well, the suit's the real star and the thing, and it is his fetish. And it is the thing that when I am reading any incarnation of the Iron Man comics, I can't wait. I'm happy to see he and Rhodey futzing around and all this, but I'm like, when's he gonna suit up and kick some ass? Because that's where the cool graphics are, that's where the dialogue gets very choppy and Sergeant Rock and all that stuff that I adore.
That's the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Not bad, huh? Let's do it.
For Downey, one of the biggest challenges of the role was donning the costume and its heavy weight. The iconic suit was designed by a group of Marvel artists, including Ryan Meinerding.
Ryan Meinerding, who is one of the most talented concept artists in the entire industry, we thought he could do something cool with Iron Man.
I would get packets from Marvel saying, like, these are the basic breakdowns of different artists, and, use them as inspiration as you see fit, at least for that initial concept phase. It becomes difficult to figure out how to incorporate more of the comic book design themes because a lot of them are really based around human anatomy and not so much about the mechanical.
And you know what? Omni magazine 20 years ago is reality today. And Popular Mechanics now has people diving in what looks like an Iron Man suit from the ionosphere into a safe landing on Earth. We're really verging on this time where science and mythology are inseparable.
The guys that were most responsible for the Mark III design on the first movie were Adi Granov and Phil Saunders. And they did go through a pretty lengthy design process to sort of find something that felt like Iron Man and felt like it could be believable and felt real. Adding that sense of realism is really what drives Iron Man. And I think that that's probably the most profound design theme in most of the stuff we do.
One of the design challenges was designing a practical suit that could actually be worn.
Shooting practical elements seems big and expensive, but it's actually less expensive than the type of digital work that would be required. There's a lot to be learned and gained from incorporating practical elements even to the digital work. So we just created that work in our environment.
The reality of trying to cram somebody into that thing and make it work, understanding like how easy it would be just to say, oh, in the digital world, they'll just cheat that shoulder outward and it'll make it look heroic. Sort of having that limitation to say they're gonna have a practical suit definitely makes it more believable.
For suit construction, Marvel enlisted veteran effects company Stan Winston Legacy Effects.
When we came on, there was an inherited, Bible of looks, lots of different looks and lots of different things. The thing about a studio like ours, it's a core group of absolute comic book, I hate to use the word, let's call them fans. We're fans, but we truly are. And also, you fuse that with the love of art and anatomy and all of that. But you have to fuse both worlds. Everybody knew, like, it's got to be, what happens if this comic book proportions are brought to life? So that was the interesting challenge of getting the right proportion of the suit to the girth of the shoulders, to the size of the head. And when we were modeling it, I kept forcing the issue. Collectively, we all did, but I kept forcing, like, make the head smaller. Make it as small as you possibly can. Make the legs as long as you possibly can. Then Robert Downey was cast when most of the model was kind of done. Then we had to scan him and kind of fit him in from the hips up because he had to operate the thing. So finally, the maquette, like the one that you see behind, from the waist up, Robert Downey fits into that. But the other proportions are correct, and I think it was a really successful merge of that. And then I was looking at the printouts going, there's no human being on Earth that's got broad shoulders and little itty-bitty hips and a head about this big. But we found some really great and talented stuntmen performers that were very athletic, very fit, and they fit lengthwise into the suit as well as the upper proportions. And the audition basically was, we must have seen 25 guys come in. The audition was, can you fit this helmet on? Because if you can't fit the helmet, you can't be in the Iron Man suit. So it was kind of like Cinderella's slipper, really. It was like, if you don't get if you can't come out of the helmet, so, you know, there were guys just trying so hard, like, oh, I can do it.
The first half hour of being in the Iron Man suit is like the coolest Halloween you ever had. You're getting ready and you just catch a glimpse and you go, that's right, Grandma'd be proud. And then because it's not really designed for guys to wear, you only have so much energy, you only have so much charge in your batteries every day. So it was tough, but yeah, it's a badass suit.
Some aspects of it are amazingly ergonomic, and others, though designed by the greatest team in history, are less.
She's among the greatest props I've ever seen. The best translation of a character from a comic to a film that we've had on any of our films. And when you see your actor and your stuntman walking around in that suit, Iron Man is there.
What can we do today?
Voila! That was probably one of the coolest moments for me, like working in movies, because it was literally like Iron Man was standing right there.
Good luck keeping up.
He's Iron Man.
Shane Mahan and all the Stan Winston guys are geniuses, literally. Not just how can you execute this thing that we said wasn't possible, but how can you adjust it when we realize on the day we want to do something completely different? Or how, in the moment, can you make something work that we just decided there's no way this will ever work, even though it worked 5 minutes ago.
Good luck keeping up. You don't want one of these. Oh. Works every time.
Once we designed that and built that, then the digital companies could take that physical, full-size piece, scan that one, and use that as the basis for their computer model. And then they were able to, you know, obviously tweak it a little bit more, like take the waist in, just subtle little changes, maybe make the arms a little longer, but you really are hard-pressed to determine which one is which.
Spearheading the visual effects process was Victoria Alonso.
The way that Jon Favreau likes to work is that if I can't tell that you've done your job, you've done a great job, because the more real that we make it, the more grounded that our superhero is. And one of the key issues in making Iron Man successful is to have made him quite grounded.
I think it's the most successful of it is what ILM did in some of those sequences, where you really think it's a suit.
Got a great idea, Tony, but my suit is more advanced in every way.
How'd you solve the icing problem?
Icing problem?
The suit is about 1,000 pounds. Robert is quite quick on his feet, and if you keep that lightness with the suit, I think you lose the reality of 1,000 pounds of metal on you, and that determines very much the kind of assertiveness that you walk on. And even though people try to mimic it, it's tricky.
Between us and visual effects, we really came to the conclusion of physical start, physical end with a soft, gooey texture of digital in between, maybe with a few more shots. It's peppered throughout. It's pretty nicely peppered from that's real, that's digital, that's real and digital. It's like you can't quite tell, and I think if you have to work that way so that you fool the audience's eyes.
It's imperative that we keep that relationship with Legacy, because so much of what they can give us, and you can actually put onto a body, so much of it becomes alive when Robert Downey Jr. puts it on. And we learn so much about the character that he inhabits, that if you don't have that, as good as we are in the computer graphics world, the gift of the actors, what they bring to the table, is something that we almost get there, but we don't quite get there. Still try to keep it grounded and as real as you can, because that's the world we live in. The Marvel Universe portion of it, of Iron Man, is very grounded in today's world.